Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Girlfriend, Let Me Tell You, the podcast, a podcast that brings relatable stories, topics, and experiences to Black single mothers. Some of these topics are discussed by women, some are discussed by men, but today I am going to bring to you a topic about substance abuse. I'm your host, Latasha Ingram. Today on my podcast, I have a guest whose name is Shellette Ingram. And the reason why I brought her on my podcast is because there's just some topics that I can't cover on my own simply because I have not been through the experience. So I want to bring someone who can bring light to what is actually going on, bring some facts, so that the people who have gone through what she has gone through, or the people who have dealt with family members or friends, will know exactly how to handle the situation, or at least get a better idea of what they're supposed to be doing. So Shellette and I came on the podcast and we had a very, very candid conversation. And so I want you to listen in. But first, let me give you a little backstory about Shellette. Shellette Ingram is a single mother and the author of I Can Do This, How to Be Free from Drugs. She now works at True Worship Ministries as an administrative assistant. After the passing of her dad in 2010, Shellette became addicted to drugs for many years as a way to deal with her pain and hurt. She then found her way back to God and the church in 2016. There, she was able to see how addiction can affect individuals on both sides of the equation, the person with an addiction and those that love them, like family members who are trying desperately to help their loved one get better but don't know what else they can do or say that would make any difference. This inspired Shellette to write, I Can Do This, in order to help those struggling with drugs see that there is always hope for a better life. Shellette has given her testimony at churches, retreats, and podcasts to those who may be struggling with addiction. She is an advocate and avid speaker to young people about making good choices. In September 2021, Shellette plans to release her new book, online course, and blog website about how to live in freedom from drugs, as well as encouraging others that it is possible. Her second book will be in the similar style as her first. She plans to inspire others with testimonies and stories of people that have been through or going through something similar to what she has experienced. She also hopes to offer help and support for those who are fighting addiction. Let's get to the episode.
Hey, this is Shellette Ingram with Girlfriend, Let Me Tell You podcast.
Girlfriend, let me tell you. Girlfriend, let me tell you. Girlfriend, let me tell you. Oh my goodness, girlfriend.
Well, I'm Angela, and for those who don't know me, I go by the name of Angela Shellette Ingram, and I was born and raised in Montgomery County, and I'm releasing a book next month, and it's based upon just dealing with substance abuse, and I experienced that. So, with that being said, the title of my book is I Can Do This, How to Be Free from Drugs. And it just basically talks about how, my experience, but at the same time, it's motivational and like the steps and what to look for and what, and how to just cope with when you're struggling with addiction. And a lot of times, it's the help is offered, but it's like the way my experience was, it's like I want someone to be able to relate as to, okay, when they read the book, oh, what did they get something from it? Or they able to like take it and put it in their pocket and run with it versus, oh, I just read your book, and so that's basically where I am today. Like, I want to be able to reach someone, it's a lot of people in the world they have, it's a secret. And so this was a big step for me. So again, I'm Angela Ingram, and that was my goal, like to put this book out here, based upon my experience.
Okay. Something you mentioned was your book talks about like the steps on how to get off drugs or like the phases of being on drugs.
Well, basically, like, it's like a step down. Like, for example, the first, you got to admit it. You got to admit that there is a problem. Because a lot of times, even myself, I was in denial. I didn't realize there was a problem. Don't nobody know, or can't nobody know. And, you just be in your own little world, but at the same time, you're just hiding behind a lot of hurt and pain. And so the first step is admitting it, because it's major when you're walking. I was functional. A lot of people are not functional. Mm-hmm. Whether you're functional or not, the thing is you got to be able to admit it. And that's when you make that step, everything else, and you stay focused, everything else will fall in place, because along the way, you also got to identify your triggers. And it's like a process. They say, what is it, this 12 step? I don't have none of that, or I didn't go through none of that. But the thing is, it's a process. But if you want to change, you got to shift your mind. And it's just so much, because people just think, oh, well, say if you're having a conversation with someone, a lot of times people say, well, you're going to be all right, or just quit doing drugs, or stop it. It's not that easy at times, because, then you got to, it's certain things, that conversation alone can trigger someone to even relapse.
Right.
And so that's the thing. Once, in my book, it just talks about what I had to go through to go through the recovery process. And, it's just steps, admitting it, identifying your triggers, and just remaining focused and being held accountable.
Okay. So I have a few questions, but before that, who were you? What was life like before? Because you said that you went to drugs to help you deal with your dad passing away. So before that, who were you? What was life like?
During that time, it was I was just as lovable. I'm still lovable, but it's I was just real calm and quiet. I just was just living day by day. And it was okay. I wasn't the type to party. I think back then I was I was cool, calm, and collective, I guess.
Right.
As to when it transferred to that, I described myself during that time, I was dangerous on the inside. Again, because a lot of people didn't know, because I always isolated myself, to where it's not because I was worried about what people's going to say. It's just that I was always isolating myself to just be going on 1,000. And during that time I can be getting high, and it's I'm just sitting back by myself. But that's the thing is, who was I before then and then now? I do compare that, because it's I've come a long way. Mm-hmm. Because okay. To me personally, it was more on the inside. And, back then I was just cool, calm, and collective beforehand. And then when all that took place, it's I just transformed into this monster.
Right. Yeah. And I know death affects people differently, how they cope with it. Some people do choose drugs. Some people choose violence. Some people choose isolation. Like you said, they just want to be by themselves. You said when people tell you just stop, that can be a trigger, but you didn't even know that you had a problem. Did someone bring that to your attention, or did you just, okay, let me say this too, because you said that you got back into the church in 2016, right?
Right.
How did you get back in the church?
Well, the thing is okay, so let me break it down the best way that I can. So me, myself, when I say, when you're having a conversation with someone and they're you can do this, or versus just stop, just quit, it's different. And it can be a trigger, because it's in the user's mind, it's they're not listening to me. Mm-hmm. When we want to have a conversation with someone about our addiction, and those words come out, and it can cause us a guard to come up, because it's are they really listening? Right. Oh, it's not that easy. Versus, okay, let me get my life together. But I grew up in the church, and it's just in 2016, it's I was tired. But don't get me wrong, during those years that I was, my use of the drugs, the thing is, I still went to church.
Oh, okay.
So I never stopped, but it's that 2016, that was it right there for me, because it was I'm tired. I was just at my lowest point. I got tired of the cycle. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And in other words, I knew better. I can say God was a part of it all. But like I said, I still continued to go to church during those years. I just
Okay.
wasn't, I was blinded. The thing is also, a lot of times, I'm going to use this phrase, I'm gonna break it down like this, because a lot of times when you have an addiction, you become paralyzed. So you get comfortable being poor. That's the words I use. In other words, I struggled with cocaine. So I became paralyzed. So my rock bottom could have been any time, yes. But at the same time, sometimes people become, when I say paralyzed, they get stuck and they don't know how to change, or they don't want change. They can say rock bottom all day long, but the thing is, when is your rock bottom? And so, and that's the thing, and that's when fear comes in. Fear of change and fear of wanting to do better, fear of just, okay, I need to get it together. It's real, because fear can causes us, it can paralyze us for life. And that's where I was at one point in my life. But when you get tired, you make yourself move. You'll find a way. And at the same time, it depends on the support and the mindset. And I compare it to simple things such as people go stand in line for a pair of Jordans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then they'll do whatever to get high, but you should put the same effort into wanting to change.
Right.
And so it sounds crazy, but that's why I kind of look at it sometimes, because it's much needed. You have to look at the odds and the ends. And like a lot of times, when people when they're struggling, they become paralyzed, and that's their crutch. Their life depends on that high. And then when they can't get high no more, then they graduate. And so, that's the thing, like, we don't want them to graduate. We want them to, graduate to freedom.
Right.
Not being imprisoned into your own, you know what I'm saying? Being a prisoner of your own self, like, that's not good. And so a lot of times, that's the reason they become paralyzed, fear. Because they don't know when they want it. They just be talking, because I've been there, done it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it comes a point in your life, you're tired. You get tired. Because it's like, okay, you wake up, you don't spend all your money. You ain't got enough money to go get you no combo. I mean, come on now. Like, let's talk about it.
Right.
Like, if you want to go hang out with your friends, you ain't got no more money. Or if you want to go buy your outfit, you ain't got no more money. It's just simple things. And God forbid if you don't have a job, then your mind triggers to the other things. Let me go steal this. Let me go do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Let me ask you something, since you brought up fear, because I was going to ask you this later too. Were you afraid of what were you afraid of what you would become if you continued to do drugs? Or were you more afraid of what you would become if you stopped? Like, were you that dependent on it?
And that's a good question, because as I was writing over the years, one of the things that I wrote about was what would my life be like if I continued? Because when I got high, I felt like in my mind, I loved Angela. Well, at the time I was Angie. I loved Angie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wasn't afraid of anything. And then it was like, okay, now that I'm not getting high anymore, I mean, the withdrawals, I mean, my mind was just, and that's when fear tried to come in.
Right.
Because it's like, how am I going to cope? My body was so used to that substance. And my mind, like, how am I going to go on? I can't do this. I can't do that. And that was fear, because it was part of the withdrawal process. And then once again, it could be a mind thing, because it's like my body needed that substance, because it came from me getting high maybe once a week, twice a week, to every day. I mean, every day. And it's like, once I stopped, and it was like my body needed it. And then that's when the fear, like I said, the fear come in. Like, how am I going to do this? Because when I was high, I just did anything. I went anywhere. I mean, my mind was totally different. And like I said, at that moment, I loved myself. Like, I feel like I could take on the world when I was high. And then once, like I said, when I stopped, it was like, yeah. So that's a good question, because fear did try to come in. But at the same time, I go back to the Bible. God has not given me the spirit of fear. I had to keep just repeating it to myself. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't. Because there's many, like I said, it goes back to the triggers and the slightest little thing. Oh, I'm finna go get high so I can feel good. And so you
Just
got to
like
be able
to
to,
escape.
yes, you got to be able to establish the difference. Because
Okay.
I mean, if you're not where you need to be, you would easily go back.
Okay. I can see how that can happen.
But some people get high to feel good. And then they feel like they're worse when they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, let me go get that fix again. So yeah, it's a difference.
Okay. Let me before I ask you about your healing process, how you actually got off drugs, I want to say something. Drug addicts don't only hurt themselves, addicts and whatever the addiction is, but we're on drugs today. We're not on drugs, we're on the subject of drugs. Drug addicts don't only hurt themselves, they hurt those around them too. So I know that you were saying that you saw both sides of the fence. You saw it as being an addict, and you also saw it as the people who are trying to help someone by loving them and trying to help them get better, right?
Right.
Did you ever realize that you were hurting your family, or did you realize that you were hurting your friends?
Well, that's a good question, because at the time, when you're not willing to admit that there is a problem, you're in denial. Because I promise you, I was like, don't nobody know. My family don't know. And and it's like, so when I revealed this information, I had one family member that was like, you weren't addicted to drugs. And I'm looking at them like, yes, I was. And they saw me on the regular, so it's like you got some that are shocked, and you got some that are like, they still don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, like I said, I was like, didn't nobody know, but some did knew, but they was just like, nobody ever approached me about it. But at the end of the day, I'm sure 9 times out of 10, they felt some type of way. And as far as my friends at the time, I mean, I had a few, oh, they didn't agree with it. And then you had some that just went with the flow. They didn't judge me. So on the friend part, it was either go with the flow or whatever. So, but I'm sure, like I said, deep on the inside, they probably felt some type of way, but didn't express it. But now they probably are able to express it and say they're proud of me, and just didn't know how to approach it then, because they, like I said, they didn't want to judge me.
Right. Yeah. Do you wish someone had said something?
Yes, if they knew, because again, in my mind, didn't nobody know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wish they would have. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whenever you went to True Worship Ministries, because this was in 2016, what, 5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
What made you go there to True Worship?
Actually, I had got connected. I was actually getting some oil for one of my sisters, and Sister Tia, actually. And that's how we connected. And then she sent her sister, which is Pastor Sherry. And I thought she was talking to me, and I was like, this woman is crazy. I was like, this woman's really, really crazy. She was just pointing the word into me and loving on me. And I'm like, you don't know me. Like, so my guard is up. I go in defense mode. I used to go in defense mode really easily. And it's like, whatever. But the thing about it is, she was there for me. And then like it went from that to come to church. Went to church, and then it was a domino effect. And then they offered me, it was some classes offered here at the church, recovery classes. So that's where, it all began with me. It's like, okay, I do got a problem. And so, because it started with the class, and so that's how I got connected.
Okay. So I know you know Sherry, I know you know Tia. Because we're from such a small area, did you ever feel like, I don't want to go to these classes, I don't want to go to church, I don't want to talk to Sherry or Tia because they know me and I don't want to be judged? Did that kind of make you fall back a little bit? Or did you
No,
just go? Straight
because
in.
the class was offered here, but it was a different instructor.
Okay.
And so like now at one point I was like, they know I do drugs. Like, because when you don't know a person, again, your mind just be going 1,000. I don't know. Then they probably thinking, this girl on drugs. I did have those thoughts, but then as time went on, it just wasn't there no more. So I didn't fall back. Actually, they pushed me. Like I ain't gonna say push me. They made sure that I was okay, in other words.
Right.
They never judged me and nothing like that. They just made sure I was okay. And like I said, the classes helped, but it gave me a clearer mind of outlook on struggling with drugs and like the people who are struggling with drugs. Even, basically I had to evaluate myself during those moments, and it made me
Okay.
see clearer then, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay.
So
You go ahead.
when I got sick in 2019, I did have a relapse because it's something it was the darkest place in my life, and I relapsed. And so I had to bounce back. And was I ashamed? Yes, because I knew. I won't worry about nobody else. I knew. And then it's many times where it's come across my mind, because it's like, okay, because I would be mad or something doesn't happen. And that's the enemy, because the enemy wants you to go back. And so like, for a while, it was like, I had to remain focused. I had to be committed, consistent, and considerate, because if not, then I wouldn't be able to tell my testimony today.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, me just, I had to shift my mind to God, because it was much needed. And that's while I say people, if they want their freedom, you're going to do whatever it takes. But I had to be in place. I had to be committed, consistent, and considerate, because if not, again, I wouldn't be able to be sitting here or just having this conversation. I would have never finished no book. Like,
right. Yeah, and I'm proud of you with your book.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Something else I wanted to say. Whenever you relapsed, did you reach out to get the drugs, or did somebody just happen to be saying, "Hey, I got them"? But did you initiate that
both.
yourself?
It was both. It was like the timing was so crazy. Like, I was angry, upset, going through a whole lot of things. And then I get a phone call. You want to hang out? Such as got, it's a good batch. And so that was like, okay. Automatically, I just fell right into the trap.
Okay.
And so that goes to why I said my next book would be Divorcing the Drug Dealers, because not in a bad way, but my thing is like, you have to disconnect, because then you'll leave access to that door to be open once you're trying to go forward. And the slightest thing that'll cause trauma in your life, you can easily go straight back to that door, because you ain't gonna have to have the keys, because you left the door open, if that makes sense. And so that's what when I went live the other day, that was my whole thing. Like, you have to break up with them. You have to let them go. You have to, what happened? You have to let them go.
I can see you now, though.
You have to let them go. So it was like the timing was just like, wow. Like, and so that was something I had to identify as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. How many times, because I know you said you relapsed, how many times did you try to quit?
Well, the funny part is, like, when I say I was functional, okay, like, say today is Wednesday. If I got high tonight, then in the morning, I probably won't get high again till later. But when it came to it being every day, it was like boom, 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 boom. So it was like, it just depends. Like, because you can never tell with me. And then it was like, it depends on how hard I went, if that makes sense. And so it was, be bland, trying to be, God, just take this away from me. Let this be my last time. I said it 1,000 times, I'm sure. So like I said, it depends, but at the same time, it's crazy how the mind goes like, God, help me. I cried out for many years, but the thing is, faith without works is dead.
Right.
God can do his part, but you got to do your part as well. So I admit it. I mean, I'm sure over 1,000 probably. But until I was serious enough, that's when it happened. So it was a lot of times.
Okay. Because I know nothing happens overnight.
Right.
I want to know the people that you're trying to help now, how receptive are they? And I hope I use that word right. How receptive are they to you offering your help? Do you feel like you're getting through to them a little better because you have a story?
I want to say yes. Well, I will say yes, because the thing is, like, if I can do it and God can do it for me, he can do the same thing for whomever. And like, the thing is, like, you I want to reassure them that there's still hope. Because, like, again, they got to be willing to want it. They got to be willing to admit that, okay, I have a problem. And at the same time, it's okay to get help. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because until that step, but I mean, it's out there. I'm going to put it out there. And that's my thing. Like, I hope they receive it. And it's not to be judgmental. None of that. It's like, I want to help. Like, if you want this, let's do this. Like, we're together. We're, you know what I'm saying? We together.
Mm-hmm.
It's not no I, it's we. Like, and that's my whole thing. Like, I want to help them. I want whomever to know that there's still hope and you can do this.
What are some things that you're doing to replace drugs when something happens that gets too hard, or whatever, you're sad or you're angry? What are you doing instead?
Actually, by me being committed and focused, my mind isn't the same anymore. Because I have to be reminded on a daily basis, when you know better, you do better. As well as I'm a single mom. I have my daughter, and my thing is, like, I want to be an example, but at the same time, the blind can't lead the blind. Mm-hmm. And so, like, my mind doesn't, I don't think like I used to. Like, I really had to change my mind had to be changed, because I didn't want to continue to go forward. You can't, in other words, I can't go forward in life and still look back, because it's a distraction. And with that being said, it's like, okay, Angela, you either go do it or you're not going to do it. And like me saying, oh, when I'm mad, I won't go out, that's just taking the easy road out. Yeah. Stop coming up with excuses. It's nobody's fault. If you want it, just do it. And so that's how I mean, and when it doesn't cross my mind like it used to. It'll try to, but I have to just keep it moving, because I don't give it the time of the day like I used to. Again, it goes back to the mind being shifted.
Right. Okay. You said committed, consistent, and considerate. Is that like your mantra? Is that something you have to tell yourself all the time, or you just live by it?
I have to live by it.
Okay.
I mean, I've learned it, but it was hard. It wasn't easy. I have to apply it on a daily basis, because it makes everything easier. And it's just much greater that way.
Right. So what is life like now?
Life is wonderful. Like, just me going to Vegas, me wearing makeup. Like, I keep my nails done. Like, I'm being the lady that God created me to be. Before it was all t-shirts and, it was me but hiding behind those t-shirts. So life is great. I love who I am. I thought I loved myself then, but I can say I love Angela. And so life is wonderful for me.
Yeah. And I know it has to be a great feeling to find yourself, to save yourself, actually. Some people are still in denial. Some people don't know they have a problem.
Right. I wish somebody would have said something, but then again, it's like I said, I was dangerous back then. My attitude was real. And I wish they would have said something, but at the same time, it's like, don't do that, because I was a walking ticking bomb. But at the same time, when someone realizes it, it's good that it's because it's a way to approach the situation. But I do wish somebody would have said something.
Okay. What are a couple no-nos when it comes to trying to approach someone that you think has an addiction? What are a couple things that you would say people should not do?
Well, I don't like to use the word addict, for one. And then, like, of course, just don't ask them, are you getting high or are you on drugs? That's the negative way to like approach a situation. You just got to go in having a normal conversation and let them have the floor. If they want to vent to you and open up to you, fine, let them have that space, but don't overtalk them. Just don't make it about yourself. Make it, let them talk, but don't just come like, are you high? Are you on drugs? That's a negative, because it can cause them to go in defense mode, and the whole situation can go left. I mean,
that makes so much sense.
You don't know how they're going to react to those questions or even the conversation. So again, I've been there myself, and you got to allow them to just let them be themselves. And eventually they will come around, they will say something. Because you see the conversations will change as well as their behavior. And if you're listening and paying attention, you will pick up on it and just continue to go with the flow. You'll be receiving of what they're, what I'm saying, what they're saying, and just be able to just fall in place with them. Because it's a difference. It really is a difference.
Okay. And that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense to not just dive head into the conversation. That makes so much sense. Again,
yeah, because it's like
on the outside looking in.
Right. And then I look at that in any situation, because we never know what the individual's going through or what's on their mind. And that's why I say, you know where you are. And if they're coming, what I'm saying, the conversation, just let it be open and free. But at the same time, that's their moment. And so eventually they're going to grasp to you. And then that's, like I said, it's going to be like a puzzle piece. It's going to come together. And so we don't want to go into those questions or those conversations, because it can cause them to turn and just make things worse, not in our eyes, but on their behalf. Because they're not going to look at it or view it the way that we are. Because at the same time, when you're talking to them, they're probably in denial, or, just, it goes back to the triggers, but like, you just got to let them be great, and you'll fit in, and you know when it's time. But just let them be themselves and let it be about them.
That's a great point. So now that you are where you are now in life, do you feel like, man, I almost missed this? Like, I almost missed writing a book. I almost missed going to Vegas. I almost missed living. Do you ever have those moments?
Yes. Yeah. Not as often as I used to. I used to have them all the time, like what if, but not anymore like I used to, because it's like now, the thing is, it's never too late. And so that's what I keep in mind. It's never too late. Just go with the flow. Of course, we can't make up for lost time, but you still can get your life back and do what you're supposed to do.
Okay. And how did you come about writing a book?
Actually, during every time that I would be getting high, at the end of the night, I always wrote, whether it was a sentence or one word or even a whole page, and just put it all together. It don't seem like much, but that's what I wrote over all the years, every night. Or I was just coming up with things in my head, and I remembered them, and I just put it together. It came together. I wrote down stuff for years.
What goes to your, okay, so you put that in the book?
Well, I didn't put it in the book, but I had to word it a different way, if that makes sense. Just like the triggers. Like, I mean, just being held accountable. The do's and the don'ts, like, it was, as I would say, the ghetto way. That's just jot down a crazy word and then just put it in, you know what I'm saying, a way that someone will understand it.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what I did over the years.
Okay. And then when did you feel comfortable speaking to other people? When did you become comfortable helping other people? When did you feel like, there's something out here in the entrepreneur world where it's called something syndrome, imposter syndrome, right? Where I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to talk to people. Who am I? When did you feel like you were the person to go out and help people?
Actually, you're gonna think I'm crazy probably, but I used to be high and encouraging folks. Kid you not. I would be high and just, well, this is the, and then I always made it known the same way I'm encouraging you, I have to encourage myself.
Okay.
And they would be listening to me and they would be receiving what I was saying. Because my whole thing is like, I'm not bad nobody. I didn't change overnight, but I am somebody, and you can be somebody as well. And so that during those moments, I felt like, yeah, it was God's telling me, go ahead and say what you got to say, because it needed to be said. And so that's the way I roll with the flow. And so now it's like, I want people to, you gonna have some that's not gonna be for it. That's fine and dandy. But I need them to know that it's okay. I'm here if you ever need to vent, because I've been in your shoes. And like, I'm here, I'm willing to pray for you, whatever it takes. And the thing is, if you're willing to take that walk, I'm willing to push you. But at the same time, we're gonna be side by side. Because at the end of the day, you're still someone important. You are important. And it's never too late.
That's all right. I like that. That was real good. So let me see. So what do you see in the future for Miss Angela?
Well, of course, I'm starting, like, life is great. I'm gonna continue writing books, and like it's just crazy because like it's like I'm gonna have a series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's just, I want to be there for the next. I want people to know that the world is yours. It's never too late. And I just see myself just serving others and just living for God and like just making things happen, making the world a better place as the best way I can anyways. Because,
Okay.
I'm a single mom, and, I want her to know that, again, the world is yours. You got to apply yourself. And a mistake or failure does not define who you are. It refines who you are once you realize, okay, I got to get it together.
Okay. Let me ask you something, because the other day you had said that your dealer had called you and you were saying, I don't do drugs anymore. I'm good. You remember that?
Yes.
So do you go, this is a two-part question. Number one, do you go out of your way to avoid people who may try to reel you back in? That's the first question. Do you go out of your way to avoid them? Like, let me stay away.
No, because I'm at a place in my life now I can say no. Like, I know who I am, versus back then, I probably would have, because, I don't want to get high today. Versus now, I'm not getting high, period.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I don't know. I don't avoid, not at all. It's just that
Okay.
that phone call, it just threw me way off, because it's like, where did you come from? Like, and then, like I said, I just put it out there about the book, and then I get a phone call. And then, I'm like, is someone trying to be funny?
That's how things
Or,
work.
right, like, is this real? Like, and so instead of me, not, like I said, that was my opportunity to identify that demon and be like, okay, no, of course I don't get high no more, but like, you can be free just like I can, and encourage them, but not down them, but at the same time, speak on what's real. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, just be honest. And so, yeah, back then I probably would have, but now it's like, no. Hey, how you doing? Because,
Okay.
I've dealt with people who are proud of me versus people, or whatever. But you can't change. I mean, you don't have no control over people. So,
Right. And there are millions of people who have not heard your story yet. There are millions of people who don't know what you've been through, where you came from, how you got to where you are now. But for those people who do know, who knew Angie, and now
right,
they know Angela. Now
right.
you're not avoiding anybody, but do you feel like anyone is purposely avoiding you because they don't want to change, or they don't want to hear what you have to say, or she just probably gonna try to talk my head off and try to change me? Do you ever feel that from people?
Well, actually, I don't. And that's another thing. Like, I need people to understand that I'm here for you, but at the same time, I'm not going to be the one to, oh, that conversation's not going to be about that all the time if I see you or if we run into each other. Because again, you got to be mindful how you approach the situation.
Right.
Because it goes back, when you're ready, you're ready. I just need the world to know that I'm available if need be. If you need my, support, I'm there. Because I'm not the one to judge no one. And because again, I've been there, done that. And they just need to know that I'm not, no, I'm not gonna be the one that ain't. You can cut if we run into each other, and I know that's what if you struggle with addiction, you can, hey, how you doing? How was Christmas? Or what you doing for Thanksgiving? I'm not just gonna be like, well, you still, I
Right.
want that conversation to be left up to them if they want to open that up for me to, participate in. Other than that, no.
Okay.
If that makes sense to what I'm saying.
It does. But I'm glad you're saying it, because the things that you're saying make perfect sense. They make 100% great sense, but it's not something that someone else would think of.
Right.
Now, how somebody tells you ever done something and somebody be like, you're doing too much. And you be
Right.
like, am I? How? I think with you saying what you're saying now, somebody is listening right now going, ooh, I did that. I did not know that's what I sounded like. I did not know that's how I was coming off. I thought I was being helpful. Because it
Right.
seems like what you said earlier was, just stop. Why don't you just stop?
And,
That
yeah,
seems
right.
like the logical thing to say. Like, I'm not doing drugs. Why are you doing drugs? I'm not
Right.
doing this. Why are you doing it? Just stop. The same way you started, just stop. Because some people don't have nothing to stop. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's just like me saying, stop talking. And you're like, but I talk all the time. I love to talk. Just stop talking. I can't stop. Same thing. So it's perfect that you're saying this right now, because either somebody is listening to you saying, she's spot on. I hate when people do that to me. Or somebody else listening saying, oh, okay, I need to do better.
Right.
So that's perfect. Now, what is this experience like, going to Las Vegas and meeting new people and doing the photo shoot and getting ready for September? What is that like?
I was totally out of my comfort zone. You hear me? Like, I'm talking about dress, makeup. I mean, I told somebody I'm 38. This is the most pictures I ever taken in my life. And I even took I don't like my arms out. I took a photo, sleeveless. I mean, I was just getting it in, like, and it felt so good. Like, I mean, I was just smiling, like, wow, like, where have I been?
Right.
And it's like, it made me feel so good that I took that step to go and to, be educated and, just learn new things and like how to move forward with whatever I'm doing. And it's amazing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the whole experience was just awesome because, like I said, it pushed me out of my comfort zone, but it was needed. So in other words, I did what was necessary, even though I felt uncomfortable, but it was necessary because I got
Right.
results out of the end. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I come back a different person. I can't say that.
That is awesome. And I'm glad that that you're telling your story. Here's something else that I've realized just in general. There are a lot of people who have similar stories, but nobody has the same story. And
Right.
so something else I've learned is there's so many people in this little town, in this county of Montgomery, who have been through so much, and they are afraid to tell their stories because they will be judged. There are people who have been through so much where your story is waiting to be heard by 1 million people, while my story is waiting to be heard by a separate million of people. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so when I was saying earlier, do you feel like because of what you've been through, you will be more effective? People will accept what you're saying quicker than they will what somebody else is saying, simply because I could have had 4 other people on my show prior to you, and I could have the same, let's just say 100 listeners. The first person didn't get through to nobody. Great story, right? Second person didn't get through. Third person didn't get through. Fourth person didn't get through. And then right when you come on, someone is like, that's what I was waiting to hear. That's exactly what I was waiting to hear. And that's why I'm proud to have you on my podcast to share your story, because your story is going to touch the right people, the right people. And I also feel like everyone is waiting, and I can't say everyone because I don't know everyone, but me personally, whenever there's something that I want to happen in my life or something to change, there's probably only one person that can make that happen, right? And who is that person? I don't know. But we're all going through something. We're all struggling with something. It only takes one person to say something. And we don't want that person that's going to trigger us. We don't want the person that's going to take us back to where we came from. We want the person who has been through what we're being through and can get us through to where we are now. So I know that you must have a great, oh my gosh, what's that word? Support system to get you to where you are now.
Yes.
And I know that you can take a lot of accountability for what is happening in your life now, because like you said, faith without works is dead. It doesn't matter what everybody else says for you or does for you, or how many prayers they pray, or how many times that we have to wait for you to do something too.
Right.
So let's stay right there for a minute. How is your was your support system filled with people that you knew and people you didn't know? Or was it just immediate people?
It was just both. It was both. And I know what worked with me that helped change, shift my mind, was that being somewhere where I want to use the word comfortable. Like my mind never like, I can't wait till I get in this, that's how it started with me. Like I knew I was safe. I knew it was something that was going to come out of this whole situation. Like I'm where I need to be. So when you're where you're supposed to be and you're in place, can't nothing go wrong. Well, you get what I'm saying. Like
I do.
You don't have time. You don't make time for the negative, or you don't make time to go backwards. And again, that was my whole thing moving forward, because looking backwards, it was a distraction. So the support was there both ways.
Okay. Do you still lean on your support system?
Well, sometimes it depends. Well, no, because at the end of the day, it becomes a part of growth.
Mm-hmm.
When I go home, they ain't there. When I leave the church, they're not going with me. So I know that they're there, and I know if I need them, I can call them or whatever. But other than that, I'm standing, with God. Like He's there. I know God's there. In other words, before in the beginning, it was needed. So now, like I said, it's growth that has taken place within me to where I can stand alone and be able to say, I got this. I haven't forgot about my support team, never will.
Right.
But the thing is, I can stand alone.
What are a few things you remember them doing or saying that helped you?
It was mainly their time.
Okay. Let me back
time
up.
played a big part. The time and even the conversations, like to even get me to, like when I would be negative, the conversations will turn my, get me back in the positive lane. And it was much needed. And so when you're listening and hearing someone, because it's a difference. When you're listening and hearing and you're applying it, it sticks. When you're around positive people and, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stick with you. And so that was a plus for me, the conversations. Because I've learned this, that if you got to do something and think about it, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be consequences. Versus, if you're doing what's right, then, hey, what's the problem? But like I said, it was a process. I had to endure to the end, and I did. Again, it's a scary thing.
I bet.
Like, God, make this day great versus, what am I going to be faced with today? But yeah.
Okay. When did you stop being so defensive?
I think once I realized that it's okay and everybody's not out to get me, because that was my mindset. Everybody, when they come at me, I feel like they out to get me or they just being funny. And so once I realized who I was and who I was becoming, it was a part of growth. Because because it's the way that you approach people. And so now it's like, I just go with the flow. I have to be mindful and I have to think before I speak, in other words. So I want to say it ain't been that long. I'm still, but I'm able to identify though, if that makes sense. Because now I have to use, my default is my smile. And so, like I said, it's a part of growth. It hasn't been that long though, because it's still some areas that are kind of shift, but I have to get back in place.
Right.
And that goes back to how I respond.
Okay. All right. What else would you like to add?
If you are struggling with addiction, I just need you to know that there's hope. Like, you're beautiful, you're important, like you can do this. Of course, I don't expect you to get out here and do it by yourself. Their support system, I mean, it's there somewhere, because my thing is, like, if you want help, you're going to make sure that you get it. And it's okay. Just know that it's okay. You're not going to change overnight. But things happen for a reason. And just know that you're loved. And you got to keep in mind that you're going to lay your foundation. You're going to be able to gain your power back to get your life back.
Right.
And I encourage you, like, you can do this.
Okay.
I want to leave on this note as well. Something that carried me along the way: no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I considered myself bulletproof. And so that carried me along the way, because it's like, it may form, but it won't prosper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even with the addiction, like like, it's going to come hard. You just got to know that you're bulletproof, and you got to stay focused, and you got to keep going, because if not, then you know what I'm saying? That's when the relapse come in. And like, the thing is, like, you can do this. And, a lot of times when I was quoting that scripture, I was forming my own weapon. I was forming myself. And I was like, how can I be bulletproof if I'm forming my own weapon? I'm harming myself. I was leaving that door open to get harmed. And so that's another thing, you're not just beautiful and important, you're bulletproof.
Girlfriend, let me tell you. Girlfriend, let me tell you. Girlfriend, let me tell you. Oh my goodness, girlfriend.